Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome back to GeoGearHeads episode 211, and we're going to be talking about travelers today. Not that we have any agenda, so if you're watching in the live Q&A, you can post your comments and questions, and we can talk a little bit about those. We love talking about those. And by we, I mean myself, Daryl W4, and of course, as he is almost every week, the Bad Cop is returning.
Well, thank you, Daryl. Are we talking about time travelers? Because, you know, those are much more interesting travelers to talk about, I think.
Yeah, those we only talk about in the first show of April, usually.
Okay. That's true. We have in the past, actually. But we have one of our, well, it's kind of a time traveler of our own. He appears from time to time, and we talk about travelers with him. That's one of our returning favorites, Dave DeBearmaker.
Hey guys, how's it going? I should note that I almost didn't go on because as the talent, I demanded some M&Ms, but they hooked me up with some M&Ms in the show notes, so the show will go on, just so you know.
It's awesome that you have the bandwidth to support M&M transfers.
No, it's new. I don't like to talk about secret projects, but yeah.
3D candy printer.
You know that tomorrow they're going to be talking about Google's new project to transmit M&Ms.
Oh, maybe they could just encourage them to do it. Like a 3D M&M printer, like right there.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Hey, they have the 3D chocolate printers. Why not?
Yeah, I mean Google X. That's self-driving cars and a 3D M&M printer. Done.
Nice. And don't forget Project Loon.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, see, if they could work with just the bandwidth of Project Loon to deliver M&Ms, I think they could solve all the foods problems in the entire world.
I think they could. There's no reason, absolutely no reason not to do this for everybody.
Yeah. Well, you get the peanut M&Ms. There's your protein and everything.
Mm-hmm. Peanuts are hard to print.
Hey.
And it's a vegetable.
It's Google. They'll figure it out.
Okay. How about if we go with peanut butter? I think that's easier to work with.
Okay, we'll go for peanut butter. It squirts around a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly.
We got crunchy peanut butter.
Now I can see someone running around with like a super soaker filled with peanut butter.
Ooh.
That would be an interesting thing to watch.
And I left my super soaker with peanut butter out all night, and I can't get it to squirt anymore.
Oh, this is so wrong. And it's not even a post show.
No. Oh.
Okay, well let's start with the description of what we're talking about by travelers, because that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to everyone.
Oh. No.
So Dave, what do you want to define travelers for this episode?
Well, we already took time travelers. Yeah. Well, if you want to be serious, should we be serious? Let's be serious.
Yeah, let's be a little serious.
All right. So this is a show about geocaching, is it? I've heard.
Yeah, mostly geocaching.
Okay, let's go that route then. So travelers are on geocaching things that travel from geocache to geocache. They take the form usually of a dog tag with a little number on it that's about 6 digits long, I believe, and oftentimes they'll have what's called a hitchhiker attached to them, which is usually a small toy or some sort of memento of some kind. I like using path tags and aliens. Like little toy aliens. And the idea of those trackables is when you find a geocache with a trackable in, or a traveler in it, they're also called trackables, you could take the traveler with you and move it from cache and drop it off in another cache and track its progress online using its little secret code. And then that way you can move these travelers from cache to cache, and fun and hilarity ensues.
Yeah, and they could be coins, the tags, like the bug tags. Most of them that we're going to be talking about are the ones on geocaching.com, but there's also other services that could be trackable, like GeoCredit. And I don't know that we want to talk about it now, but just as a reminder, actually we don't want to talk about it now, but as a reminder, in the early days of geocaching especially, people were using the Where's George dollar bills as travelers and caches, because that was something that was around before travelers or trackables were initiated at geocaching.com.
And that's how I got interested to Where's George, but we're not talking about that right now.
Where's George?
Hey, I actually found a Where's George $5 bill in my change from, don't remember where actually, but in the change from someplace just last week, and I was like, there's a Where's George $1.
Did it have Where's George written on it?
Or it was stamped on it.
Stamped, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you track it?
I did. And it's only been out for about 2/3 of a year.
Wow.
So there's still people starting Where's George bills.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that for a little while, I was seeing a lot of Where's George currency floating around. Then about 2 years ago, it started to slow, and about a year ago, it was like I almost never saw it.
I've never seen one.
Really? Yeah, I'm wondering if it's in part because so few people seem to be paying with hard currency now. So many people I know have switched to credit or debit cards for all of their purchases. So maybe it won't be long before the Where's George are isolated to just geocachers.
Oh, interesting. And, credit cards are like Where's George. I mean, you keep track of them, where they've been.
No. That's the merchants that keep track of you and where you've been.
Yeah. And the hackers. Don't forget the hackers.
Oh, the hackers too, yeah.
Love the hackers. No, I don't.
Anonymous knows where you've been.
This is why I prefer to pay with Android Pay or Apple Pay, because then they can't track you.
Right. I got to pay with Apple Pay at a new place, and it was like, look, it works. This is like a toy. Anyway, this isn't real money. Spend more.
Yeah, well, and that's why people like when you use the gift cards, because you tend to spend more when you have a gift card because you don't think it's real cash.
Plus, it's annoying to have a gift card with like 33 cents on it, so you got to up it beyond the value, so you use up your whole credit or your gift card.
Exactly.
Okay.
What
are we talking about tonight?
We're talking about anything but geocaching, I gather.
Well, hey, we started out talking about trackables. Now, many trackables have missions. They have a goal that they want to achieve. Now, not all of them do. So, Dave, as our trackable expert, you have a shocked look on your face when I said that. As our trackable expert, how do you know if a trackable, a coin, a bug, a geocredit, whatever, has a mission or not?
Well, first you use ESP. There's a couple of ways. If you go to the trackables page on geocaching.com, and the way you find that is you go to geocaching.com. There is I believe it's under Play and Find Trackables, and you type in the code that's on the trackable, and it'll take you to that trackables page, where you can do a bunch of things. But that also has a description of what the trackable is, and that page also has a mission that can be filled out. And if you're not sure what a mission is, a mission could be things like take me to various beaches around the world, or take me to a certain country, or take me to I did one that was it was a hockey player trackable, and he wanted to go to various hockey rinks around the world and have pictures of it taken. But that is one way. Another way is some trackables, if they actually have a mission, they will have that mission attached to the trackable, usually either in a Ziploc bag and have it on a piece of paper, or a method I like to use is to laminate it and then attach it to the trackable with a small little chain. But those are the two ways. But the best way to do it is probably going to the trackable website and looking up the mission there.
Well, and we should also mention, especially with our audience, that smartphones are a great way to do that. You can do it in most of the caching apps at this point. And the thing I like about doing it in those caching apps, too, you're getting that live view of where it's at, and you can see if it's even been checked into that cache or not. And just a reminder, it is very important that you do pay attention to what that mission is before you take them, because I've had people take trackables that wanted to go to a specific cache like 100 miles away because they didn't pay attention to what that Trackable's mission had been,
Mm-hmm.
or just didn't realize what it was.
I had a trackable that went from Norfolk, Ontario, and its mission was to go to Norfolk in the UK. It got within about 4 miles of Norfolk in the UK. Then somebody took it to Colorado.
Of course.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
Isn't
was
that the fastest way to get to Norfolk, UK from anywhere in the world is to go through Colorado first?
Shockingly, apparently that is the case.
There you go. Then that's why.
Okay, well, there you have it. So this brings up a good question, guys. What should you do? Okay, so we've talked about different ways of finding their mission. What should you do if you find a travel bug that is at its destination? Say you find one in Norfolk, UK. You go, well, that's at its destination. Now what do I do?
Well, if it doesn't have a mission on the traveler page or attached to it, then the default mission is it just wants to travel from cache to cache or whatever. So you don't have to worry about it if it doesn't have one there.
Or if it's met its mission?
Now that's a bigger question. If it's met its mission, then I typically will just do whatever, take it to another cache or take it to events and pass it along, take it around for discovery. And that's actually the big thing with the trackables now is not so much the movement, but the people taking them to events and discovering them at events and things. So that's something to consider, is that there's not many travelers actually traveling, and I want more of them. But with all of the small caches that we're seeing now, it's not really easy to get them to fit in.
So,
which is something else we should probably talk about.
Yeah, Daryl, is this the wrong show to say I'm kind of done with travelers now?
Probably.
Okay.
That's for the next show.
Well, and let's face it. For most of us, I think the trackables aren't the travelers, but they're the discoverables. So things like the dog tags that, or not dog tags, the name tags that like we have for GeoGearHeads.
Here's one.
There's one right there. Oh, and you're not going to give the video guys the chance to discover you, huh?
I wasn't going to, but since you publicly shamed me.
Yes, and that one's a nice, easy one too. But that's a very common thing now. Is you get the vehicle tags, you get the tattoos, and that's probably another show we should do is talk about the discoveries. But that's actually more popular in my recent experience than the travelers, and the discoveries at the events of travelers seems to far outnumber the number of travelers you find in a cache.
That is totally true. One of the things that discourages people from travelers is the fact that they have a tendency to disappear from time to time. And from time to time, I mean most of the time. So that can be discouraging when you're trying to send out trackables and they disappear. Although sometimes they disappear and reappear months, years later, which can be kind of fun.
Oh yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention about a trackable that has reached its mission. If it's just has met its mission and it's still traveling out in the world somewhere, like it's at its mission but it's been moved on, you could probably just move it on to the next cache and the next cache. I know I have some travel bugs out there. Some have specific missions, and some are just please take me to someplace new. So it's always nice to see them move around. However, some people's mission, and I actually have several trackables like this. I want to get the trackable back to me. I've personally sent trackables out. I've talked about this on previous shows, so this might not be new to everybody. But I've emailed trackables, or not emailed, physically emailed trackables to cachers around the world, and the mission of that trackable is to get back to my hometown so I can have it again. And I've actually had success, and I have 2 of them come back so far, which is kind of cool.
Didn't you have one of mine come back, or one you mailed to me? Did it make it back? An alien.
Was it yours? I think so. I can't remember whose it was that I mailed it to, but I did get one back from each of the 2 races.
I mailed it right back to you.
You didn't mail it right back to me, no.
Oh, no. That's the only reason you got it back. You mailed it to me, I logged it, I mailed it right back to you. That's not how these work?
No. It's not that one. But the point is it is possible that somebody could have dropped the trackable off into a cache that I could retrieve the trackable from, and I don't want that trackable at that point moved on because I want to go get it myself to really finish the mission. But I just haven't had time to yet. So basically, I just want to bring up the fact that if it's recently hit its mission, you may not want to just grab it and move it somewhere else. If you're a local cacher, maybe grab it and hold on to it, and email the trackable owner and see what they want done with it. Which is another thing.
I was just going to mention that, Dave, is what I like to do many times is if it's just recently accomplished its mission, I'll put a note on the page or email the owner directly and find out what they want and offer to put a new mission tag on that trackable, because that way it can get there. And I've even had some that are, the smaller, easier ones that I've offered to mail back to them, especially if it's a great distance where you're not sure it's going to survive the trip.
Right. I've also emailed trackable owners when I could satisfy the mission for the trackable, but it would take me, I'd have to hold on to the trackable for a fairly long period of time, like months to like quarters. And I just email them and say, by the way, I have this and I'm going over here. I can satisfy the mission for it. Do you want me to hold on to it, or would you rather have it released in a cache locally and have somebody else move it along? Because sometimes they're looking for the finish line. Sometimes they're kind of looking for the journey. So if you're going to hold on it for a while, like order 2-3 weeks, shooting the trackable owner an email is it's kind of a nice way to just sync up and make sure that A, they don't know that it's missing, and B, make sure that the trackable is doing what the owner would prefer.
What is this email of which you speak? I've never received an email about a trackable.
It's new technology that's been around since the 70s.
No, I take that back. I have received one email on a trackable. Somebody found it. I figured it was missing. They found it over a year later and said, "I'm so sorry. I just found this. I'll get it moving on." It's like, wow, nice. So
I've had a few of those. Most of the trackables I've released are coins, and last time I looked, I think it was something like 1,200 trackables in total that I released across the multiple accounts, and less than half of those were still moving as of 3 years ago. I think it was when I actually ran the numbers, but at least 10 or 12 of them have had I'm selling my car and I just found it, or it's at the bottom of my bag that I just dumped out, those kind of things. I even had one email, "Hey, I stopped caching and I still have this in my bag and totally forgot my apologies. Can I mail this back to you?"
Mm-hmm.
So that does happen sometimes. My most unique one, though, was I had one of the coins stuck in one of the California wildfires.
Oh.
The container had burned and melted away, and it was a lock and lock or something like that. And there's a few little bits left. And when he extracted everything, my coin was one of them, and the plating had come off. So it's just like the nickel coin, some tinting, and that's about it. And he was nice enough to send that one back to me, and I like that just because of the story that was attached.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's as a trackable owner myself, the story of where it's been is often the most interesting part of watching them travel from cache to cache.
Well, and I think this is a good spot that we should encourage people to hide their own or release their own trackables because of those great stories. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons why you'd want to, but I think, Dave, you're like me, where one of the best things about them is to see the travels, where you'll get the photos, and that's one of the reasons why I like to ask for photos in a lot of my descriptions, is because I want to see, or in my missions, I should say, not descriptions, but I want to see those photos of the travels, and some of them have been really, really cool. Like there was one of yours that you had sent to me. I took it out to Chicago, passed it off to FireSafe, who took it on a Route 66 trip and got a whole bunch of cool photos along that line, but it got nowhere closer to its actual mission.
Yeah, and I kind of didn't care because it was getting a lot of cool, going places that I've not been, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah, and we had that discussion on email before I actually took it and passed it off to him, because I thought, these are going to be great photos. What's better than an alien traveling Route 66?
It's perfect. I mean, I've had another story of coincidence. I released a travel bug at the GeoWoodstock 10. I just stand in front of a cache, we exchanged travel bugs, we moved on. And then this past May, so it's like 3 years later now, I was in Germany. And unfortunately, I didn't get the notification till afterwards, but that travel bug was on the travel trading table in the Giga event in Germany that I was attending. So I missed it by that much, but it was, it would have been within 20 feet of me at some point in time during that weekend, which was really kind of cool.
That is very cool. Now, and that brings up a good point too of logging and getting that notice of where it is. This is one thing, unlike caches, which generally it doesn't matter when you log them because a year from now you can submit that log on the appropriate day. We hope that you found that cache, and it doesn't really matter because it's not moving. With trackables, they're only moving when you log them in or out of a cache. So it is very important as someone who's grabbing them to move them in a timely manner. However, you want to make sure that you're not messing up someone else's log. So if it hasn't been dropped into that cache, you might want to contact the last person who had it and tell them, hey, I picked this up. Can you please log it in? And typically I'll give them only, I hate to admit it, but only about 3 or 4 days now before I do that. Before I actually take it, grab it from them, and then drop it into the cache, because you have to drop it there to get the mileage. Then I retrieve it and drop it into the next cache.
Interesting. Daryl, you spoke of releasing coins. I wouldn't want to release one of my expensive coins into the wild.
Well, and that's why I released mostly the coins that I produced. So they're still expensive, but they're not as expensive as the ones that you buy for $10 to $20 or whatever. And most of those I would not release the ones that are for sale.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the reason I think I had such success for so many years with my coins is I had so many of them that I released that they were no longer a cool novelty. They became commonplace. For almost 2 years, I think, I dropped a coin, sometimes more, into every cache I visited.
Wow.
And one of the reasons that I dropped all of these coins, or could drop them, well, that too, was that I had coins that were small enough to fit into a film container.
Mm-hmm.
I explicitly designed them, and that's one of the things I like about the coins. You can make them that small that they fit into tiny, tiny containers.
Was this one of them?
No, that one actually doesn't fit.
Okay.
And that technically is not a geocoin because there's no tracking number.
Oh.
But I had the mini film can, since I was a photographer. Not that I had worked with film much by that point even, but I was not that far removed. And, what better to represent photography at the time than a film canister?
That's right.
And I like the irony of dropping a film canister into the film can.
You gave me one of those, and I released it into the wild, and it went up into Canada, way up north into Canada, and it only was discovered 3 months out of the year. That's how far north it was.
Wow.
So
and it's probably still there.
No, somebody took it. Now it's down in Texas, going all around.
Oh, cool. But it's still moving?
But it's still moving, yes.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Nice.
But for a year or so, maybe more, 2 years, 3 years, it spent time up in the frozen north and on the tundra.
Yeah, and if you're designing a coin, and I highly recommend you do this if you have the means and willpower to do it, because it's nowhere near as easy as just buying something like a dog tag and releasing it. But it is a lot of fun to do this. Design your coin. If you're going to release it, don't make it a really cool, expensive coin. Make it a simple coin. Consider that this thing is going to be moved around and abused. It's going to get crushed in the sand. It's going to be driven over by someone's car when it falls out of their pocket. You have to consider when you're designing it that it's not going to hold up if you have a lot of the detail.
It could be in a wildfire or in the tundra.
Exactly. So, design these things to be fairly simple if you want them to travel. And I think that that will also help because if it's a more attractive, uh, frilly coin that's looks prettier with a lot of detail, I think it's more likely to get confiscated.
Hmm.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with geocoins, which is a whole show unto itself, but some of the art is just absolutely insanely amazing. And when you go to things like Going Caching, which is a mega event in Georgia, they have coins that are actually used to solve puzzles. And they have, the last year's had like gears and stuff in it, and you turn a gear a certain way and it changes symbols and other thing, and use it to decode things. The quality is just absolutely amazing. And those types of coins, I really dislike moving from cache to cache because the chances of them evaporating are a lot higher.
Oh, absolutely. And they're just not really good coins to be moving around, especially if you have pieces on them that can come off. These
Right.
kind of things don't survive very well. A good example is the Geo Woodstock 12 coin that I think all of us have because we were all there and caching together. Is a big, heavy coin that's not very nice to move from cache to cache, and it's got the rope attached to it to the second piece of that coin, holding the two together. So that's one of those, it's going to get separated. They're never going to see each other again. So that's an example of a coin that's a collector piece, not a traveler.
But Daryl, along with that coin, they issued a proxy.
Exactly, and that's something that's probably more than worth talking about. And one of the questions that's come up about proxies is when do you release a second proxy? And like the dog tags from geocaching.com used to come with a copy dog tag. I heard, and I think I've even had one that only had the one copy now. So you don't, or the original. It doesn't come with the copy dog tag. But a lot of people were releasing the copies when their dog tags, their original travelers stopped moving for a few months or whatever.
Any period of time, right?
Yeah, and same thing with the proxies. As people release the proxies, when they seem to have gone missing, they'll go get another proxy and release that. Now, my preference is to not release the proxies because I've had at least twice where I have done such copy releases of a dog tag only to have the original show up later. So I had the same traveler moving twice.
Okay.
And that makes for a big mess, especially when you have discoveries on the same day.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what your goals are. I think if it really matters. If you're trying to go for accurate mileage, then that absolutely matters because every time that thing is logged, the algorithm they use is just basically measuring the distance from the cache that's logged into in sequential order. So if somebody logs it in in the States in one day and then Europe the exact same day, even though it's the copy, it's going to count all the miles from North America to Europe and then possibly back. So if you care about that, but if you don't necessarily care about that, then it's probably not that big of a problem. I know the Going Caching trading card this year. I don't have any examples in front of me, but on the back of it, I actually put a trackable number on the back of the card. Not because I wanted to see how far any of those things would travel, but just to see how many people would actually log it from the event. So in that case, that's an example of having the same number out there that was actually intentional. But if you're going for accuracy of mileage, then releasing a second one, if you're not sure that the first one has been destroyed or definitely no longer in circulation, is fraught with peril.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if geocaching.com is actually permitting it now officially, but I have heard of people who are issuing like cards for things like their puzzle caches that are trackable. And they don't care how many of those necessarily are out there with the same trackable then. They just want people to know that there is one of these cards in this cache. But the problem is if you have multiples of those cards with the information on it, how do they know it's in that cache? Because it can only be in one cache at one time.
Exactly.
I do not know. I've not heard of such shenanigans.
Yeah,
Although it intrigues me.
someone was telling me about that, but I think the way that they were actually doing it with theirs is they were traveling only to events. They weren't putting them to caches.
Okay.
So it was something that you could discover at the events, and then whoever had it would drop it into the next event and move it on to the next person. But they had multiples of those cards with the same tracking number moving around so that they had multiple copies so more people could discover them. But the intent was just, I think, for events, because they wanted to get people from events going to do their cache. And that is a good way to get people to do your caches. Put a trackable, at the event for the cache.
Now I want to take a travel bug and send out, 20 copies of it, just to see what kind of activity I'd get.
Yeah, but you're not going to get a good movement from it because it's going to be everywhere. It's everywhere at once. Sounds like some kind of like good portal coin or something.
Imagine the map.
Hardest coin.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's the other thing, Dave, that we didn't really touch on, is if you do have 2 copies, you never know which cache it's actually in.
This is true. Yes, because as you mentioned, a trackable, the way the geocaching.com site is set up, it can only be in one cache or one cacher's possession at any one point in time.
Right. And another problem that you'll run into with the proxies is if it does go missing and you have 2 of them out there, you might be getting discoveries on the one and not realizing that it's dead.
Yes. Or one is dead and you're just reminded of it daily because the other one's very popular and it's all sad for you.
Well, and this is one of the problems with people posting the links on the travel bug codes on things like Facebook and whatnot, is I have trackables that died years ago, but I still get logs almost daily because it's on someone's Facebook list.
Just bring back the pain.
Yeah. Well, but I didn't even realize that one of these things was dead. I thought it was still active because I was getting all of these logs on it. Then I looked back and realized, wait a minute, last actual log that can really be tracked is, I want to say it was like 2011.
And you're still getting logs on it.
So I'm still getting logs on it now.
Wow.
Because it's on someone's Facebook list.
Well, couldn't you officially close that trackable?
I actually did lock that
lock it
a few months ago. Yeah.
So let me ask you guys a question. I'm just throwing it out there. You can shoot me down if you want. You go to a large event. Wait, you gotta wait for me to ask the question, Dave.
Sorry.
You go to a large event and somebody hands you a sheet of paper and says, here's all my trackables. Go ahead and log them. Do you do it?
Dum 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 dum.
I don't. If they gave it to me in a text file that I could just copy and paste into like Project GC, maybe. But I typically don't, unless I've seen the actual travel bug. I mean, if they showed me a like binder of all their geocoins, and I kind of looked through it, and then as a convenience, they said, by the way, here's a list, so you don't have to write them all down. I may, but if it was just a random, here's a piece of paper, and I didn't actually see any trackables, I wouldn't, simply because the trackables that I use the ones that I discover as kind of a record of ones I've actually seen. I'm not in it. It doesn't. I don't care how many I actually what the number is. Have it find. I just want to kind of record that because I'm a geek. That's what I do. But I personally do not.
Yeah, I tend not to do the discoveries, but it really depends a lot on the day, because sometimes I really want to. However, if I see them at an event or something, I usually will go and grab them, and a lot of that is I just like looking at the geocoins, more so than the travelers, but the geocoins are really nice, and some of the travelers are pretty cool. Some of the dog tag travelers. So I just like looking at those, so I usually discover them. And typically what I do is actually log right in the app when I have those, but if I have the list, then I'll usually take it to Project GC, Or if I'm with several people who also want the travelers, then I just go and do like a text file on the phone or whatever with each of those codes. I try not to do the photo so much anymore because I've had so many problems with discerning what's what off of a photo. Is that a T or a 1 or...
Yeah, and some of those coins are almost impossible to take a photo of anyways. Like they're on the edge of the coin, or it's just etched in the shiny metal.
And you have to get the right angle, so get the reflection bouncing off the edge, so that you can actually see the impression is high enough contrast.
I will say I actually have logged some trackables that I have not actually seen, and the reason why I do this is occasionally when I go to an event and I have my family with me, oftentimes I'll kind of go off on my own, and my wife will be watching my kids, which they're 6 and 3 right now, so they're young kids. And one of the activities she likes to do with them is what we call travel bug hunting, where we go to the parking lot and and they'll walk through with the parking lot and point out all the travel bugs. And when they do that, my wife often takes photos of it and then sends me a list of all the travel bugs. So I'll log those because it's a convenient list, and I figure they're my kids, so they're discovered by proxy. So.
You have proxies for your kids?
Well, they are proxies of me.
Oh. Ooh. So you have built-in spares?
Yeah, it's kind of extending my reach. Yeah.
Nice.
Genetic proxies, but yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that I do enjoy sometimes more than others is going into the parking lot, and it's a good chance to get out and stretch your legs and find all those trackables. But especially at some of the bigger events, I like going around the parking lot of the hotel and finding, or bigger events, not trackables, but going around the hotel and seeing who else at the hotel is a geocacher.
Yep, I've done that too.
Inevitably, there's going to be a bunch there, and this show really started turning into more about discoveries and travelers, I guess. But I like having the magnetic dog tags for the car, the vehicle tags, because that actually lets you put them on the rental vehicle. So for a long time, I was taking that one traveler, putting it on the car that I'm caching in that day. Sometimes it was a friend's car, sometimes it was my car, and occasionally it'd even be a rental car on a vacation or something. And it was just cool to be able to take that around, and some people actually use those to dip for mileage, and that's a really cool, handy way to get mileage for all of the caches that you visited if you want to.
You got to be careful with those magnetic ones, though. I've lost one in car washes, and it snuck up on me. I was actually coming back from Newfoundland to mainland Nova Scotia, and when before you get on the ferry, they rinse your car down so they don't contaminate from off the island. And we actually lost the travel bug then. But just before we got on the ferry, my wife was like, "Oh no, we lost the travel bug!" And she rushed over. She actually found it, and then she put it back on the van. But then, like 3 days later, we had the same thing happen, and we got lost again, and we didn't notice. And by the time we actually noticed, we were gone. So just be careful of those. If you do get the magnetic ones, be careful of the car washes because they're fraught with peril. Which is one reason why I have the vinyl one now, because they don't disappear as quickly.
Right. Yeah, they don't move from car to car.
But also they don't move from car to car.
Right. But
although
much
this might be a good place to have a duplicate. Because usually my van is nowhere near a geocacher if I'm traveling, because I'm the only geocacher in the family. So the odds of things getting discovered accidentally, if by having, say, a magnetic one that I keep for rentals and then keep the vinyl one on my actual car.
Right. Well, and one of the nice things with most of these travel tags like this, you can get additional copies made, and like my magnetic one is faded, so I might want to get it replaced, so I can simply contact the vendor and say, hey, I want another one made with this number, and they can make you a second one or third one or fourth one. So that's something to keep in mind. But I usually, with the magnetic ones, I only put it on the vehicle when I'm caching, and that does reduce the risk of it falling off, because I don't really trust them that much to stay on the car.
Yeah.
And they won't stay on the car if you have plastic body panels.
It's a very good point. Although it is kind of fun having people randomly discover your travel bug. This is you're going about your business and you get an email saying, "Hey, I saw this at this location."
Yeah. Well, and I will say the magnetic travel bug doesn't get discovered all that often. Yeah, I have not had a whole lot of success because I think it is so small. The people who are using the bigger vinyl decals have much higher success rates of getting discovered. So that's something else to keep in mind is if you really want people to notice it, get one of the nice big vinyl ones. They're going to be discovered much more often than is your magnetic.
Well, if it's a rental, just spray paint the number onto the hood.
Exactly.
Just get the
I'm
insurance
sorry,
first.
I don't know what happened. I parked the car and someone spray painted this gibberish on the side.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's not my fault.
Don't actually do that.
Oh, what about the window paint? You know, they use for graduation.
Temporary stuff.
Yeah.
That could work. I've seen people do that.
Yeah, especially for like the
Woodstock or
Geo
bust.
Woodstocks. Yeah, yeah. I've actually run into at least one person. I think it was two different people over the years who have purchased a dog tag for just that trip, and then they retire it afterward. So they
Interesting.
know, they put it on just, because you can get the dog tag sometimes for like $1 or $2. Not often, but $1 or $2. And they'll go and do that for just that event, and then they continue to get those discoveries, and they know it's from that trip because that's the only time they've ever used it. Meanwhile, Wet Coaster in the live Q&A says, if you're going to an event and are unsure if you have the right location, look for the cars with all the travel bugs.
I've done that many, many times, especially for those events where they don't actually list the restaurant or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just go to these coordinates and it's a strip mall. It's like, am I in the right place? Look, cashiers.
It's funny, event I just went to recently. I got out of the car and I go, I don't think this is the right place. I don't see any travel bugs. So it was just the reverse there. I don't know if this is the right place. It was.
All right. Well, let's wrap up the discussion of the travelers, because we could probably go on for another 45 minutes or more talking about travelers, even though we're not necessarily talking about travelers. We're talking about discoveries.
That's true.
And I think we'll need to do a show about discoveries, too.
Yeah. And how to write a proper discovery log.
Yeah, that would be a nice thing to do as well.
Yeah. Found it. Where? Where did you find it?
Yeah.
Where was I on August 3rd?
Tell me more. Yeah, well, and the problem is a lot of times I think those found it logs are people who didn't actually discover it. They're the people who found it on a list somewhere and just discovered it for the number.
Or their friend discovered it, or it's at a mega event, or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still getting found logs for travel bugs that I had on the booth at the block party. That's been 6 months ago.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm thinking, yeah.
Did they mention it's on the block party, though?
Yes.
Because I've actually done that, where I've taken the photo of the travel bugs, and then like 6 months later, I'm going through all my photos, and then I said, wait, I took a picture, and then I logged it, but...
The log is, sorry, so late on this one. Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't affect me in the least, but that's not what we're talking about. Okay, so you guys may miss the giveaways we're doing every week. We've changed it a little bit at the beginning of the year, but we're going to make them better. So next week for episode 212, are you listening, Dave?
I am listening. Go on.
We are wrapping up the entries for question 212. And opening up question 215. So the whole idea here is we're not going to do a question each week. We're going to wait, and we're going to we want more feedback on certain shows. So next question is for show 215. We're going to have Jennifer of Team AJK is coming back and wants to focus on a hider's perspective of puzzle caches. So if you're a puzzle cache, or you are a puzzle cache owner, or you want to be a puzzle cache owner, email us at geogearheads@cacheamaniacs.com by February 9th at 6 p.m. Pacific, that's 9 p.m. Eastern, with the subject question 215. In the body, tell us your geocaching screen name, what region you call home, and your question or feedback about owning a puzzle cache. Maybe that's something about which website to reference, which checking service to use, or how many hints to provide. As long as we have those questions about hiding a puzzle cache, Dave, you have to shake your hands louder when you put fingers up there.
The correct answer is 3 hints.
Okay, 3 hints. If they can't figure it out, it's too bad.
Yeah, just 3.
As long as we have those questions about hiding a puzzle cache by February 9th at 6 p.m., you will be entered into the drawing for a membership to project-gc.com. Remember, that's question 215 as the subject of an email to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com. And you know what? I'm feeling like we should get the response in your own voice. So, if you send an audio file to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or call in to 206-350-3647, you will get a bonus entry into that drawing. Now, we've already got some great audio comments for question 212, and hopefully we're going to get more of those for question 215.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with some of those ones that have come in for 212, and that's just next week, all about logging, so you'll hear a lot of those next week. Don't know how many of them we'll have time for because we got so many great responses. We'll have to start picking and choosing which ones we're going to include. And Dave, you're going to be back for that show, as is Gary of the Cache and Release podcast. So we're going to have some great discussions about logging geocaches online. And I'm really surprised because I don't think we've had anyone yet tell us that they're only logging certain types of caches, because that was one of the things that tripped it off, is we're hearing more often now than we had in the past, oh, I'm only logging FTFs, or only logging the more interesting caches, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because why are you finding them if you're not going to log? But that's one of the things we're going to talk about next week.
Yes.
And on the 28th is going to be Randomize XLX. No. Sorry, XLII.
Time machine.
Time machine?
Oh, we're going ahead in time to XLII.
Okay. So that's your perfect chance to get any of those little topics or whatever that you might have us talk about into us so that we can talk about them. We can't talk about them if you don't just provide them to us.
Oh,
Then,
we'll talk about you.
We might talk about you if you don't provide anything, so make sure to send those in. February 4th is episode 214, and this is going to be exciting because we have Rock Chalk on to talk about caching ethics. Then, as we just kind of told you about, on February 11th, we're going to have Team AJK, Jennifer that is, of Team AJK, and of the Puzzle Cache blog on to talk about puzzle caches once again. So we're excited to have her joining us, and we always love going through your questions, so that's why we're asking for that as question 215.
Very sneaky.
You're starting to get the correlation there, aren't you?
Yeah, it's all starting to click.
Well, what we want you to click is the webpage at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes from this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming, so please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show is copyright 2016 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.